We're talking gaming. I wanted to give some touches to Path of Exile. This week I had a chance to talk to the creators of this action RPG, which continues on our conversation of microtransactions and more specifically Kickstarter. This is a game where in 2006, three gentlemen, one was in Sweden, two were in New Zealand, were playing Diablo 2, have been doing so for about 6 years, and they said, you know what, let's make our own action RPG. It's been 6 years since, Diablo 2 came out. Who knows when Diablo 3 will be here. They got their heads together. One of them moved from Sweden to New Zealand. They started hacking and programming away in a gentleman's garage. 4 years later, they had, or I guess it was probably 4 or 5 years later, they had close to $2.5 million in crowdfunding for this game. Now, Simon, you're a very active player. Obviously, Ziggy, you're a very active player. I'll allow you guys to give us, to dive in and say what's so unique about this game compared to any other action RPG on the market or out there in beta as well.
Well, there's the leader, which you can compete with other people. There's race all the time. It's very different too, because also the developer, like, they make patch all the time. They're always taking care of the bugs, and too, I've never seen that taken care of in any other game.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big action RPG player, but more so I'm just into games that really require you to discover all of the mechanics, the depth of them, and create your own builds and do all that sort of thing. And Path of Exile has that in spades. At the core of it, the developers saw what they liked about Diablo 2 and then made the game that they wanted to play. They cherry-picked the best things. They took like Final Fantasy X Sphere Grid. They took the materia system from Final Fantasy 7. They took all the best stuff from Diablo 2 and like competitive stuff from modern competitive games and combined it all together in this free-to-play action RPG with a really good microtransaction model, and it's turned out pretty well. It's been a game I've been covering and playing for about a year now, and will probably do so for the next decade.
Hutballa says Path of Exile is good, but I think is somewhat overly in-depth. This is just my personal taste. I'd like to hear you expand on that. I think that's interesting. One of the things I want to point out about this game, we talked about microtransactions earlier, and again, the three designers and the main three creators of this game were adamant this is not going to be pay to win, not to pay to win. And what they've done is according to them, is they've drawn in an audience that's very intelligent. They have good jobs, they have a lot of money, and they've gotten them to spend pretty good amounts of cash in other areas. For instance, they say they've got over 340 people to buy $1,450 purchases to where they can design an in-game item, which I thought was very interesting, because that's not something that really even affects how you play. It's just you get to put your own spin and interpretation of the game. Simon, is that something that you are even familiar with? Is that something you have become a part of?
No, I haven't purchased anything. It's just a little too expensive for me, but I've purchased the less expensive pack. But I think it's a very good idea. People can just, like you said, put their thought into the game, what they think would be cool.
Kirigari, you're an action RPG guy. I mean, what's your 2 cents on this?
See if I like it. I mean, I was really disappointed with Diablo 3, so if this is better than Diablo 3, then I'll be happy.
Well, Ziggy, you did a really good video on the differences between this and Diablo. Can you give us a quick brief, a rundown of a couple of bullet points on that?
Yeah, Diablo 3's got the really well-polished core gameplay, as in it plays really smooth. It plays like, Blizzard developed it, essentially. It's a really smooth game, and it's fun. It's got that more exploding mobs. You feel like a god all of the time. Whereas Path of Exile is more focused on when you get dumped on the beach at the start, you feel like an exile with just a few scraps on your back. Like, you don't really, and that's what you feel like as a player initially. And it's kind of slower to start and slower to get bubbling, but then you really build yourself up over time, and you get to that point where you feel all powerful. And there's that big difference there, and there's a lot of depth to that. Whereas Diablo is more about that smooth, actiony gameplay from start to finish. So I'd say that's the core difference between the two games. Of course, one's free to play with microtransactions, and one is buy to play, and then had an auction house, but they're removing that soon.
Path of Exile, and this is a comment from the web, but it's something that resonated with me when I was playing it. Path of Exile is the most brutal game I have ever played. It's like cutting oneself open and pouring salt in the wounds. All video game masochists, your search stops here. I am addicted to this game probably because I hate myself. If you feel like a challenge, this is the game for you.